Welcome everybody back to Friar Talk. Today we are talking about a trade that happened last week. So a little bit late on the news. It was a minor trade, but I do think it's kind of important when we look at the Padres offseason, like what their plans are and everything like that. So I definitely think it's worth diving into. What I'm talking about is the Scott Barlow, basically straight up swap Scott Barlow for Enyel de los Santos. Both relievers. As we know, Scott Barlow was on the Padres for the second half of the season, came over from the Royals. He was the closer for the Royals, kind of struggled last year, then found himself on the Padres and ended up being a pretty good option through this end stretch of the season for the Padres. Now, he was going to make around like $6 million next year. Enyel de los Santos is going to make $1 million. So, before we even get into the players, the biggest takeaway of this trade is that the Padres just saved $5 million. We know that the Padres are tight on cash. We know that they need to find a way to make some, to add some money and stuff like this. So overall, if you're just looking at that, you are saving $5 million on a bullpen arm. And honestly, it's kind of surprising that the Guardians made this move because they're pretty similar players. Like Scott Barlow might be a little bit better, a little bit more upside, but Enyel de los Santos has been solid for them. I'll pull up his baseball savant right now, but last year he had a sub 3.3 ERA, pitched in 70 games, 65 innings, struck out 62, just over a 1.1 WHIP. He's not a closer. He hasn't really done that great in save opportunities, but he's a really good eighth inning guy, and that's where he mainly pitched for the Guardians last year. So Chase, first takeaways on this trade, and I'll pull up his baseball savant as you start getting into it.
It's a funny trade. We traded him to the Guardians. I forget in which trade, but he was a Padre originally, and now he's coming back to us because we wanted to save $5 million and get a similar arm in return, and we could have had him all along. But here he is, great setup man. Looks like Suarez will be taking over that close role, unless they plan on signing somebody. But he's a great arm to have. He's cheaper. He's going to be a great eighth inning guy. Really don't want to see him in any opportunities. As you can see, I guess they don't have the same save opportunities on MLB as they do on Baseball Savant. On the at bat app, they said that he had 3 save opportunities this year, and he was over 3. And then last year he had 2 and was 1 for 2. So 1 for 5 in save opportunities is not the greatest record to have. So mainly 7th, 8th inning guy. I would love to see him kind of just be that lockdown 8th inning guy that we need to get to Robert Suarez, or hopefully if Suarez does take over that closing role and he gets to his 4, do that. If not, maybe we can give him a shot as a closer. 8th inning and 9th inning are not too different. There's a little more pressure to close out a game than there is to hold the game in the 8th, but still both very important roles. His breaking run value is great. He does up a lot of hard hit. His fastball velocity is great. He does struggle with a little bit of chase rate, but okay. And walks, that was the one thing we saw. But we have Ruben Niebla. I mean, he's getting a guy that he's going to be familiar with. It's going to be good. He's going to be fine. Let's see how the Padres use him, and hopefully they don't break him. But with Ruben Niebla and the way that he's been performing the last 2 years, I don't see any concern.
Yeah, I feel like, when we look at this, I like your breakdown, Chase. And if you look up here, fastball slider combo, 60% of his pitches, fastballs, 30% are sliders, and he throws a changeup like 9% of the time. So 96 velo, 84 on the slider, kind of just a typical right-handed reliever, but he's been good. So Padres are basically taking the route of having a cheap bullpen. And that was something, I think that's the biggest takeaway with this trade is like, they need a cheap bullpen. That's a big deal we've talked about is like they've spent so much money on the bullpen in the past on guys that have not panned out, like Drew Pomerantz, like Craig Salmon. Like they have spent way too much money. And now this is a spot where like they're going to let Hader walk. I think you're 100% right about Robert Suarez taking over the closer role. Now we see De Los Santos here, and like he looks like he's a solid reliever. You just add a few of these solid arms, not that much money. You don't need to put a crazy amount. You bring potentially some of these younger guys up to pitch in the majors that have been minor league guys or kind of like back and forth, like Alec Jacob, like guys like that, right? Maybe you bring up Mazer, right? Maybe you bring him up and he kind of starts in the bullpen and he's kind of your long reliever and you adjust him, kind of how like Pedro Avila did this year. But we can see some stuff like that, and you can see a way to utilize the bullpen in a cheap fashion. That's what they're going to have to do this year. It's not really like like we hope they go this route anymore. It's like, no, that's what they have to do, because if they're going to try to improve the lineup like a little bit and then just have a real pitching staff, then that's what it's going to take. Now, we did talk about Blake Snell a while back and about them potentially bringing him back. This frees up a little money for that. It does. Like it saves every little penny that you save. You can potentially bring a Blake Snell back. You can sign a front end arm, because you probably need to sign at least one front end arm. You're going to have to be kind of cheap in the back in the rotation, which is really scary, honestly. But I think that this is the right move. And I think that, not talking as much about the players, because it's a bullpen swap. It's not that crazy, but saving $5 million on this is how they need to build their roster. And we might see similar trades like this with Trent Grisham or Jake Cronenworth. And that's probably something I don't know if we're going to talk about that this week. I'll probably talk about that next week if there's no moves or anything like that. But those are guys that you're going to need to save some money on too. Not these massive deals. I don't think they're going to end up moving anyone like that, like a Xander Bogaerts, for instance. Like we've kind of like talked about that idea, but I don't think they're going to make any big splash moves or trade Juan Soto or anything like that. Like guys that have huge salaries, but these smaller in salaries, you go from $5 million to $6 million to $1 million, $5 million bucks there, $5 million bucks here, and you keep saving a little bit like that, and you can really cut the payroll that way to open up some flexibility for you to sign a Blake Snell or another frontline starter. So I like the overall kind of mindset in this one, but that's my biggest takeaway. Scott Barlow, wish him well. He looks like he was kind of falling apart last year and was able to find himself. So hopefully that continues. We brought up that Ruben Niebla is here. That helped. Well, he's going to Cleveland. They also have great, like kind of, what's it called? Like working with pitchers. Like it's just gone out so well. I mean, we see some of the arms that have come out of Cleveland, and they have one of the best staffs there. And obviously that Ruben Niebla is there, right? I'm not wrong on that. I'm pretty sure Ruben Enyel, yeah, he was there for a while. That's what I thought. Yeah, so I mean, you have similar kind of staff there that's probably going to help him out. So he's probably going to be good this year. Both these guys it's probably going to work out for both teams how they want it to work out. So minor trade, small one, but I think the implications of it are kind of bigger when you look like the Padres are actually trying to cut some payroll. So that's overall my thoughts on it. But Chase, anything else you want to add to this one?
No, you basically nailed it. The $5 million saved is probably the biggest thing that we need. Like you were mentioning, we just need the like one frontline starter. You look at most of the playoff runs and the teams that do well, they have 3 really good pitchers and, kind of a suspect back end of the rotation, but they also have a really solid bullpen. And if we can just build up a solid bullpen with cheap arms and get maybe 1 to 2, like one frontline starter and one mid-end rotation guy, this team could go far.
Yeah, 100% with you. So yeah, guys, that's going to do it. Let us know your thoughts on the trade. Let us know if there's any guys you want the Padres to trade for, trade away. I kind of mentioned Jake Cronenworth and Trent Grisham potentially being guys like that. We'll definitely get into it, but, let us know our thoughts on how this team's kind of looking like they're going to try to build themselves out. If you want Blake Snell back, if there's another frontline starter that you're kind of looking at, because I think that's obviously the biggest need. I don't think that's news to anyone, but you have to replace half of your innings pitched in an offseason. It's gonna jump out there. So that's gonna do it for us today, though. So thank you guys all for listening, and we'll be talking about Padres baseball very soon. See y'all.